Hello and welcome to Fowl Plays, where we look at tales of tabletop tragedy that are sure to ruffle some feathers. I'm your host, BossGoose, and in today's story, we have a DM turned player who gets jealous of another member of the group when they offer to run a new campaign for everyone. Instead of talking about it, they decide to try to kill the game by throwing tantrums and refusing to play their class or participate in plot hooks, featuring a secondary problem player with a cow kink. Before we get started though, grab a d20 because it's finally time to complete our quest with a little game called Fool's Gold. After delving into the depths of the earth and finding these ancient treasures, the only thing left to do now is safely acquire the Golden Goose Idol. This may be easier said than done, however, as it's sure to be trapped. I need you to make an investigation check so we can avoid the traps and acquire the loot. And as a bonus, if you've ever seen an Indiana Jones movie, go ahead and take that roll with advantage, and we'll check the results in 3, 2, 1. And if you rolled above a 15, then fantastic job! You spotted the pitfalls and pressure plates, and we were able to retrieve the goose unscathed. We're definitely leveling up after this expedition. If on the other hand you rolled below a 15, then you triggered a device that caused the floors to collapse, and the only way to reach the idol now is by hitting this subscribe button. Doing so will not only cause it to extend so we can use it to bridge the gap, but will also keep you updated whenever new content is available on my channel and provide easy access to plenty of additional stories that'll keep you entertained for hours. Now without any further delays, it's time to take your seats and wet your beaks as we dive on into today's tale. TLDR, DM of our previous campaign gets mad that we started a new campaign. Decides to tank new campaign by not learning the rules, playing her class, or trying to positively contribute. Also, we found out that one of our players has a cow kink, and we all died inside. So years ago, I was part of this RP group that decided to try our hand at tabletop RPGs. There was me, my now girlfriend, Drick, a creep, Aaron, a chill kid who just got wrapped up in the madness, and my friend at the time, Alana. Alana was the DM, and she wasn't very good at it, frankly. She chose to use Pathfinder because it had more options, and more options equaled better in her eyes. But she didn't read up on the rules, and she had a very railroaded style of storytelling. Notable was the time when she told me that I wasn't keeping up with the damage output, so I needed to change classes. Dear reader, I was the healing support. Another favorite was the time she tried building a boss, only to forget a stat, and thus our fighter was able to just sit on the boss for 10 plus turns, until the big bad guy smited the boss because Alana was pissed that we didn't take the fight seriously. I could make an entirely different post about that campaign, but this is just context. After finally getting through the campaign, Alana gave a big speech about how tired she was of DMing. She was frustrated that we ruined her campaign, and she was retiring her homebrew setting because she didn't feel appreciated, and if we wanted the game, someone else had to DM. Okay, said my girlfriend. I can DM next if people would like to keep playing. Most of us were gung-ho about this, and I was excited because my girlfriend was DMing. She's a great DM. This is gonna be great. So everyone started brainstorming their characters, and at the end of the month we were set to start our next campaign in a homebrew setting using D&D 5e. Completely different rule set, different character sheets, but it was such a relief after the clustered mess that was our previous character sheets that Alana insisted we use. Naturally, Alana hated it. She wanted us to plead with her to DM again, but everyone else was as burnt out on her DM style as she was as the DM. But if she didn't want to be left out, she had to play the game. So she did. I, a stupid fool, ignored the red flags being thrown in my face. In private, I had talked to Alana about what character she had wanted to play, because I was curious to know if we could link our backstories for extra drama. She revealed that she wanted to play a Nereid druid who had been an NPC in her campaign. I was confused about why she would recycle a character, but whatever. My girlfriend had said it was going to be a campaign based on an island nation, and Alana wanted to play a water character. My girlfriend even went out of her way to homebrew a player race for Alana so she could play as a Nereid instead of a water genasi or a Triton. Instead of thanking my girlfriend, Alana grumbled about the lack of options in 5e and how limited the skill customization was. At this point, I was starting to see red, but trying to be optimistic. So there we were. Session 1. Our characters were all trying to board a ship to get to this island nation that would be the primary setting. Aaron's character, a Ratkin Ranger, was the first mate of the ship. Drick's character, a halfling sorcerer, bought passage on the ship. My drow rogue had been denied a ticket, so she snuck on board and tried hiding among the other passengers. After setting sail, Aaron was about to bust my character as a stowaway. Tension was high, drama was kicking up, and then the ship was attacked and destroyed as a kraken rose from the depths. Our characters were the only survivors. Cue Alana's character intro. She comes in, the daughter of a powerful water person thing. She sees the flotsam from the ship and she discovers the other PCs floating unconscious in the water. My girlfriend had set her up so she could be the savior of the other PCs, which is how the Nereid had been introduced in the previous campaign. It was a nice callback. Or rather it would have been if the Nereid hadn't immediately called the other PCs trash and suddenly tried to drown them as she helped them to shore. This wasn't the same helpful NPC we had met in the other campaign, and it continued to go downhill from here. Our first plot hook came when we encountered patrolling guards who saw the Nereid save our characters. Seeing this powerful sea spirit, they dropped to their knees in worship and begged her for aid. Their capital had been sacked by enemy forces, and their pleas to the sea gods had been ignored, until the Nereid arrived. Surely her presence was a sign that they had been heard. They begged her to return with them to help bolster the morale of the war camp they had built, and bring hope back to their people. And they reassured the rest of us that if we helped reclaim the capital, then they would give us powerful boons in return. The Nereid, seeing the guards' heartfelt devotion and pleas for aid, called them trash and returned back to the ocean. All of us, in-game and out-of-game, were confused. "You're just leaving? Just like that?" we asked. "Yeah, I'm not interested in helping stupid land dwellers with their problems," Alana said. The rest of us tell Alana we're following the guards, and Alana scoffs and tells us to do whatever we want. Thus ends the first session. My girlfriend messages Alana privately to ask if she understood that she was walking away from the story, and Alana said she did. So my girlfriend said they would need to get together to make a new character if the Nereid wasn't going to be involved. "But she is! You just need to convince her!" Alana said.
People falling on their knees, believing you're a powerful ocean spirit who can save them, and begging for your help wasn't enough? My girlfriend asked.
It was not.
Session 2. Alana is upset that the rest of the PCs are going to the camp without her character. We should have tried to convince her character to join them, and now she has nothing to do. You left, we remind her. Alana isn't happy. She never is. While I'm trying to RP with the others, Alana is messaging me about how horrible it is that we're level 1, that we have no special gear, that she let us start at level 5 in her campaign. Why is my girlfriend being so unfair? Why do the rest of us not care that she's being left out? My girlfriend is confused and hurt that Alana is acting like this, so I try to step in and explain all the reasons why a complete group of strangers wouldn't care if her character just left. We've been RPing for years. She should know this. Still, Alana is upset. Session 3. Our characters return to the beach on a mission, and what do you know? The Nereid is there too. After sitting out last session, Alana decided to actually participate with the rest of us. But it also quickly becomes apparent that Alana should not be playing a druid. When making our characters, she said she was willing to make a healing support, so I didn't have to for once. But our first actual fight involving her character, instead of wild shaping or using any magic, she instead used her staff to hit people for 1d4 damage. She has cantrips that could hit harder. She could use Shillelagh to hit harder with her staff. I gently remind her of this, and she says, "I'm a Nereid. I only use water-based spells." So, let me get this straight. You chose to play a class that you will use exactly one elemental type of magic, of which the spells you say you'll be willing to use won't be available until your 5th level. We are level 1. She won't even take Cure Wounds because it isn't thematic. After the fight, she finds a dagger that she ties to the end of her staff, so she can do more damage. So now, instead of 1d4 damage with her stick, she can do 1d4 with her staff or the dagger. Multi-attacks! My girlfriend allows it because at this point, she is tired of dealing with Alana. So now we have a druid that wants to be a monk fighter that has a butcher knife tied to her staff. My girlfriend creates a list of druid spells that could be flavored to be water-based. Alana won't have it. Then, to add insult to injury, as my drow was using her dark vision to explore the cave and loot things while the other PCs took short rests, the Nereid gets pissed that the drow doesn't care about our friends and how they're bleeding on the ground. Never mind that my character had no healing skills. Gee, it's almost like the person who said she'd be the healer should do the healing. Also, our friends? You called us trash and left, Nereid. We don't even know you. You don't even introduce yourself for another full session. After an argument between my drow and the Nereid, we get back to the camp, where we meet an NPC Minotaur cleric that needs help. The same group that is attacking the capital also has attacked this Minotaur's temple, and she came looking for help. At this point, I'm intentionally fighting against racial stereotypes because my drow is uncomfortably aware that she is the only drow within 100 miles of this camp. She helps the Minotaur convince the other PCs to help her after the Minotaur had her own experience dealing with the racism towards her. And here is where things got very, very uncomfortable very quickly. Drick, our sorcerer, starts making sexual comments about the Minotaur. You see, Drick is a kinky asshole, and he lets everyone know this. He's been lusting after Alana for years, and she's tolerated it because she's afraid to have no friends. But the only thing that could beat his lust for Alana is his furry kink. And thus, while the Minotaur and my drow are bonding over being outsiders and the racism they've been dealing with, in walks this horny halfling. You know, Drick says in the grossest mockery of a seduction I've ever heard, I've always loved warm milk. I can hear the record scratch as everything just stops. I physically have to get up and leave my computer. My girlfriend messages me in a flurry of, "What the x?" as what Drick just says sinks in. She's at a loss. I'm at a loss. I want to bleach my eyeballs. Drick had a history of saying gross sexual things to us. You see, dear reader, me and my girlfriend are both women, in lesbians with each other. And we knew he had no filter, but we put up with it because he was friends with Alana. My girlfriend is ready to set her router on fire because the thought that Drick will be flirting in character with this NPC is too much. And I can't blame her. But then, it gets worse. The Nereid rolls up and she also starts flirting with the Minotaur, because suddenly not everything on the land is trash. But the Nereid and my character are not getting along at all, and the Minotaur immediately picked up on how they were snipping at each other. But, since my character was the one that was actually kind towards the Minotaur, she decides to avoid the weird halfling and the fish woman and stick by the drow's side. So, we depart and go to the Minotaur's temple. Along the way, we encounter people taking advantage of the country's chaos. Bandits sacking villages, setting them on fire, and wild creatures going wild as no one is keeping them in check. The Nereid does not want to help them, even when it's within her skill set. A village on fire? Why use control water to put out the fire? Not her problem. The animosity between my drow and the Nereid grows. The Nereid straight up tells the Minotaur that she wants to stab my drow. Things are deteriorating. I've been sleeping on the red flags Alana throws out as I realize the bet I've made by ignoring them. A few days out from the temple, we're attacked again by a troll. The Minotaur goes down in battle as she's been acting as our tank. Everyone was rolling bad, but credit where credit is due, the Nereid dragged her out of danger. But when my drow asked her if she had any healing spells, the Nereid said no. So much for being a healer. Drick, ever the helpful furry lusting after the Minotaur, was quick to hand over a healing potion to my drow. The Nereid, that had up until this point in the session been trying to awkwardly flirt with the Minotaur, starts trying to stab the Minotaur with her knife stick to make sure she isn't dead. Seeing my drow try to give a healing potion to the Minotaur, she tries to slap it out of the drow's hands. Stop! Don't pour that down her throat while she's unconscious. Do you want to choke her? My drow glares at her as she's slowly giving the potion to the Minotaur. Unconscious people can drink, spirit. Alana starts losing it out of character. If you're gonna make me play the healer, I'm gonna think of everything. You can't just give an unconscious person liquid, especially if they've had a neck injury. She doesn't have a neck injury, my girlfriend points out. Well, how do we know that? You already saw her go down, and I already told you several sessions ago that unconscious people can drink healing potions. Well, are you rolling choke chance? There is no such thing as choke chance. If there was a risk, I would say something, but the drow has experience giving people potions anyway. Alana huffed. Well, how was I supposed to know that? The other characters proceed to ignore the Nereid, now throwing a tantrum over us getting people hurt with our negligence right as the Minotaur wakes up. At this point, Alana starts throwing a tantrum because people are continuing to roleplay and ignoring her, with an imperious, well, I'm not having any fun and no one's listening to me, so I'm done. She logs off for the night. Everyone sighs. We say goodnight because everyone needed to cool off, and my girlfriend and I talk about what to do next. My girlfriend wasn't having fun anymore. Everyone was on edge because of Alana's tantrum, and Drick was continuing to make us uncomfortable with his attitude. After a while, my girlfriend decided to keep going because Aaron, our last player, had been a good sport so far and had been having fun, so we wanted to keep the game fun for them. Of course, it really fell apart when we finally got to the temple. We had taken a multi-week break while we cooled off from the previous fight. Outside the temple, we are attacked again by the cultists that had taken over the temple. One cultist managed to fire off a fireball, setting the steamwork machine we were using to get around on fire. The Nereid ignored my pleas to use any of her water spells to put the fire out. She ignored me, our ride explodes. We are now going to have to walk over 200 miles back to camp once we deal with the temple. Alana doesn't care. It isn't her fault. All I see is red. By the time our characters actually get into the temple, Drick had been kicked out of the group after sexually harassing me, Alana, and my girlfriend out of character and being homophobic. So his character at this point was just being puppeted by my girlfriend until we got out of the temple. We made our way through the temple, the Nereid going out of her way to try to push the drow into traps or into the front of battle. The Minotaur, tired of the animosity, ended up trying to help. The real disaster happened when the Minotaur went down again. My character was hidden in the rafters of the temple, waiting to drop down and attack the cultists. She had no healing potions on her, and the Minotaur had just gone down. The Nereid had been given some of the healing potions because she was the healer. So when the Minotaur went down, we had two choices. Either my character could try to finish off the group of baddies that just took down the Minotaur, or she could use her turn to get the Minotaur back up with no medicine proficiency and no healing potions. Immediately after me was the Nereid. The Minotaur had already failed the death saving throw. Heal the Minotaur, I told Alana. Alana huffed. You do it. You know all about healing potions after all. All I saw was red. I don't have any healing potions. You have them all. And you're the healer. And you're right next to her. And if I don't distract the cultists, we're all going down. Well, maybe we should, Alana said. This game is stupid anyway. I was pissed. Aaron had spent the last 2 sessions quietly trying to avoid the brewing drama, and my girlfriend was in agony. At that point, I decided that, even though I really liked the Minotaur, it didn't make sense for us to TBK trying to get an NPC up. I pleaded with Alana again. Please get her up. And I broke stealth and rolled my sneak attack, trying to get the cultists to focus on me. Alana didn't get the Minotaur up. Oh no. Instead, she decided to use her stupid knife stick to inflict 1d4 damage. She couldn't even use one single spell. Do you want to use a bonus action? My girlfriend said, exhaustion in her voice. I don't have any, Alana said in annoyance. She never had any bonus actions. Why would she? And you know what happened, dear reader? The Minotaur was hit by the cultists again. And she was down, so it was an auto crit. And she died. Right next to the Nereid. And Alana just said to me, well, it's not my fault. I couldn't do it anymore. I rolled my dice, I stopped RPing, and my only goal was to finish this stupid temple so I could tell my girlfriend I loved her and appreciate her for DMing, but we needed to get better friends. To add insult to injury, the Nereid was a Circle of Dreams druid. For those of you who don't know, your very first circle spell is a spell that lets you use a pool of d6s up to half your druid level to heal as a bonus action. So, to sum up, for 8 sessions, Alana apparently had no idea that she had a heal spell built into her character. Every time she was asked if she wanted to use a bonus action and insisted she didn't have one, that was a lie. I didn't find out about this until after the session when I demanded to see her character sheet. Her response when I pointed this out, "Well, how was I supposed to know? I don't know what a bonus action is." At that point, things were done. We were down a player, we didn't want to deal with Alana's tantrums anymore, and no one was having fun anymore. Not even Aaron. Then, to add a red cherry to the Princess of the Pea style mountain of red flags that had accumulated over this short campaign, Alana started attacking my girlfriend because she forgot to tell Aaron that a session had been cancelled a couple of weeks prior. This was clearly a sign that my girlfriend didn't care about her friends, and that Alana, when she was the DM, would never have forgotten to tell us that a session wasn't happening. But she did, multiple times. But we forgave her, go figure. We never picked the game back up after that. The group ended up disbanding completely after Alana went on a smear campaign against both of us for having the audacity to be upset at her for poor behavior and our poor treatment of Aaron. We just cut ties and moved on. Some say you can still hear Alana going off about how it isn't her fault that she never learned to play her own class after playing every week for 2 months. As for my girlfriend and I, we found a new group. We are much happier, and we still joke about how no matter how bad some people we play with can get, it will never be as bad as that time we had a druid that wanted to be a fighter and never once actually used a druid ability. If this is the way that Alana behaved as a player, I would have hated to see how she acted with the powers of a DM behind her. Obviously, she did not want to play this game. OP was right when they said that Alana wanted everyone to kiss her ass and beg her to run another game after the initial one had ended, and the fact that they didn't bruised her ego so badly that she was going to make everyone pay. There was a lot that can be said about her behaviors in-game, but it all comes back to that one point. She was not there to play, she was there to kill the campaign. I'll touch on a few things, but this was a long story, so I can't cover it all. So when playing a new system for the first time, I think it's generally expected that you would at least peruse the rules. You don't have to memorize them, but you're going to have a better time if you know how the game actually works. And keep this secret, but shockingly the handbook actually tells you what things like bonus actions are. Crazy, right? It also is surprisingly useful when making your character. How Alana managed to make a druid without knowing any of the abilities she had is a mystery to me. Now, in reference to the bonus action that OP was talking about near the end of the story, I'm going to assume at some point the group leveled up to 2, as that's when the healing ability for the Circle of Dreams comes into play. But, even if they were still level 1, druids have access to both Cure Wounds and Healing Word, which both seem pretty essential if you're going to claim to be the party healer. Honestly though, I'm pretty sure that Alana only said she'd be the healer to make it easier to let the party die. Really though, the mechanical issues were just a side effect of the overall bad attitude she brought to the table. Every single interaction she had in and out of character seemed to have hostile intent towards either OP or OP's girlfriend. Alana didn't want to engage in the plot, she refused the homebrew that would have made her character useful, and even just outright said the game sucked and she wanted it to end. While OP was the one seeing red, I feel especially bad for OP's girlfriend because DMing is not an easy thing, and it takes a lot of work to create and run a campaign for a group of people. So to have something like that be said can be really hurtful. And really the whole story is just a repeat of these two things, not wanting to heal and being a brat. So rather than giving Alana any more of the attention she so obviously craves, we're going to go ahead and look at Dirk before we wrap up. So Dirk didn't play a huge part in the actual story, but he was up to some pretty sketchy stuff in the background. Starting with the Minotaur, if Dirk has a thing for beefy ladies, then more power to him. But the comment was a little too far on the skeevy side for my taste. As a one-off thing, sure, it has that cringy funny element to it, but this was more of a most recent in a long history of sketchy behavior kind of thing. You gotta be careful with your innuendos because not everyone will be comfortable with them, and especially when you have a younger player at the table like Aaron. What really concerns me about Dirk, though, is the alluded harassment and homophobia. The fact that all 3 women in the group were targeted by what I can only assume is the most soul-shriveling, neckbeard-infused pickup lines and innuendos on a regular basis paints a pretty clear picture of who Dirk was in real life. We don't really get any details in the story, but I think we all have seen this kind of person before. And I'd be willing to bet money that when OP and their girlfriend shut him down, that's when the homophobia came into play. Harassment and discrimination are not okay ever. It's not a joke saying something terrible or lewd and adding a JK 5 minutes later. We don't really know anymore though, so I'm not going to go any further than that. I'm happy that OP and their girlfriend cut ties with these two horrible people, but I do feel a little bad for Aaron having to suffer through all this when all they wanted to do was play some D&D. Hopefully they still kept in touch with the kid, but regardless, they're all better off having moved on from this train wreck. Anyways, thanks for checking out my video and sticking around till the end. I know it was a long one. I upload new content every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday, so make sure you check out my channel for more D&D stories. And if you like this video, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and leave me a goosebump in the comments below. Your support is greatly appreciated. But until next time, be good players.